I came to Japan as a foreigner, though one welcomed by the scientific community to investigate the peculiar shifts in the local weather patterns. A string of inexplicable blizzards, far more ferocious than was typical for the season, had beset the region. They spoke of the weather turning harsh at a moment's notice, the skies blackening with unnatural ferocity, plunging the mountains into a tempestuous, bone-chilling storm. It was, after all, a matter of science. There had to be an explanation, I thought. Something grounded, rooted in logic. The chill in the air was nothing to me but atmospheric pressure and temperature variance. I had been warned. The villagers, though ever silent and reticent, spoke in those furtive, half-hushed tones of things better left unspoken. Whispers of the frozen plains and the strange occurrences that haunted them filled the cold, wind-beaten air of the settlement, but their words were vague, half-formed, like ancient folklore too terrible to recount with clarity. Yet as a man of rational thought, I dismissed these warnings as nothing more than the usual fare of rural superstition, a relic of the past. But even now, as I sit here in this decrepit cabin, typing with fingers half numb from the cold that refuses to abate, I know that logic cannot penetrate the horrors that inhabit these mountains. The wind is howling again. I hear her voice in the gusts, a soft melodic sound almost like a distant lullaby. Yet I know better than to succumb to it. Not now. Not after what I've seen. What I've felt. The journey began innocuously enough. Armed with my equipment, I set out alone, venturing into the mountains to record the data that might explain the bizarre weather shifts. The snow was falling lightly at first, blanketing the earth in a silent, endless sea of white. The quietude of the landscape was profound. It was as though the world itself had been stilled, time suspended in the icy grip of winter. For hours, I wandered, mapping the terrain and recording what I believed would be key data points for my research. But then the storm came. It was not a gradual onset, as most snowstorms tend to be. No, this storm came with a sudden violent fury, an unnatural shift in the atmosphere that sent a primal shudder through the very earth beneath my feet. The wind howled, not like a natural gust, but something with intent, something malevolent. The snow fell in torrents, and the sky, which had moments before been an oppressive gray, turned to an impenetrable black. There was a sound, no, a presence, in the wind. Something whispering my name. It wasn't possible. I was the only one out here. And yet, I heard it. A woman's voice. It was soft, barely audible through the raging storm, but it was unmistakable, the way she called my name, on the wind. It was a voice of haunting beauty, delicate and sorrowful, beckoning me deeper into the storm. I shouted into the wind, my voice lost in the cacophony of the blizzard. I could barely see 2 feet ahead of me, the snow swirling with such density that the world was reduced to a frantic blur of white. But her voice remained clear. It was calling me, drawing me forward, further into the abyss of the storm. Despite every rational instinct telling me to turn back, I found myself compelled to move toward it. Perhaps it was fear that drove me onward, or perhaps it was something darker, an insidious pull from some ancient force that I could not comprehend. I don't know how long I wandered, but the cold began to sink its claws into my bones. My limbs grew heavy, the frost biting through my skin. I should have turned back, should have fought the unnatural draw of that voice, but it was as though my legs moved of their own accord. My mind was a prisoner to her song. And then, through the maelstrom, I saw her. At first, it was just a figure, standing still in the heart of the storm, her form barely discernible against the blinding snow. As I approached, the shape became clearer. A woman, tall and graceful, draped in white, her long black hair flowing unnaturally in the windless void that surrounded her. Her skin was pale, paler than any human skin should be, almost translucent, as if she were made of the snow itself. Her eyes were black, voids of nothingness that pierced through the storm. She was beautiful. Terribly, inhumanly beautiful. For a moment I was frozen. Not by the cold, but by the sight of her. My breath caught in my throat as I realized what she was. Yuki-onna, the Snow Woman. A creature of legend, spoken of in the darkest of tales. One who appears in the midst of deadly storms, luring travelers to their icy deaths. The villagers had spoken of her in whispers when they thought I wasn't listening. But I had not believed. I had dismissed their warnings as mere folklore, the ramblings of superstitious minds. But here she stood, the embodiment of that terrible legend, staring at me with those eyes of void, her face as cold and unfeeling as the snow that swirled around her. And then she spoke, though her lips did not move. "You are lost," she said, her voice carrying over the wind with an ethereal clarity. "The storm has taken you." My throat tightened. I wanted to speak, to scream, but no words would come. I stood there, transfixed, as the snow began to swirl faster around me, tighter, until it felt as though I was standing in the eye of some monstrous frozen vortex. "You cannot return," she whispered, her voice filling my mind. "Come with me." I don't remember moving toward her. I don't remember making the conscious decision to step forward, but suddenly I was walking, the distance between us shrinking as the snow began to envelop me like a shroud. The cold, it was unbearable. My limbs burned with it, the air slicing into my lungs like shards of glass, but I couldn't stop. She turned away, gliding effortlessly through the storm, and I followed, as though some invisible force had taken hold of my body, pulling me after her. The world around us dissolved into a haze of white and black, the storm swallowing all sound and light. And then, without warning, she was gone. I collapsed into the snow, my body numb, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The storm had quieted. The world around me was still, but I knew that I was not alone. The cabin, it appeared suddenly in the distance, a dark silhouette against the snow. I stumbled toward it, my legs barely able to carry me, my mind reeling from the events of the past few hours. The voice, the Snow Woman, still echoed in my mind, though faintly now like a fading dream. I don't know how long I've been here in this cabin. The storm has not abated. It rages on outside, relentless, unforgiving. The fire is dying, and I can feel the cold creeping back in. But worse than the cold is the silence and the voice. She's calling to me again. The snow is falling harder now, and I can hear her outside whispering, waiting. I can see her through the window, her pale form standing just beyond the threshold, her eyes locked on mine. She's waiting for me to come out, and I know, deep down, I won't be able to resist.